Good evening. I, Devanshi Saini, the Treasurer and Sponsorship Head of the Scio Foundation, Manipal, on the behalf of my team, welcome you to Mind Your Words. We are glad to have you all with us here today. 12th December is a Universal Health Coverage Day, and it is important by WHO and promoted by WHO. It aims to raise awareness about different form of healthcare and how to increase reach, affordability, and accessibility. The event for today is Mind Your Words, a session aimed to raise awareness about importance of mental health and to address the difficulty of assessing treatment for the same. Despite being a vital aspect of well-being, mental health is rarely talked about. A very few affected people get opportunities to talk about it or receive appropriate treatment. Fighting the illness is a tough challenge, and the social stigma often attached to it make it more difficult. Hence, to initiate a conversation around the mental health, it is importance and the need of accessibility to mental health care, we decided to come up with an event which would talk about the awareness from the same. This event would not have been possible without our collaborating organization, Career Wellness Foundation, and our primary media partner, MTTN. Before we begin, I humbly request you all to switch off your cameras and mic for the duration of session. Thank you. Career Wellness Foundation hopes to serve the community along with the breaking the stigma associated with mental health, to promote the conversation on the topic and to remove the taboo on it. They also provide mental health care service and making accessible to everyone. We have with us today Ashna, the event head of Career Wellness Foundation. She is a medical student by profession and she is believer of experience of well being a building stone of growth. She practices slow living and embraces all the moments she a blessing. Mental health to her is a pivotal and she makes sure she keeps it healthy. Thank you, Asna, for taking out time from your hectic schedule and with being a part of this event. Over to you, Asna.
Thank you so much, Devyanshi, for that beautiful introduction. A very good evening to everyone. Hi, I'm Ashna. As Devyanshi told, I'll be representing Career Wellness Foundation in front of you all today. And here we are to talk about mental health. And as the title of the event says, mind your words. That means that today we are here to talk about what mental health means to us and how important it is to us. It's a webinar to raise awareness about the accessibility of mental health. And moving on to the next slide, we have the things that we'd be discussing today. Okay, so what is the learning agenda for today? That is, what is the things that we all will discuss today? Why mental health is still a taboo? Second is the myths related to therapy. Third is why is it still something that only the upper class can afford and not everyone? Fourth is common mental health issues amongst the students. Fifth is what can we as students and as the youth of today do to increase mental health awareness. The last is the resources providing free therapy, which we'll be discussing in the end. Moving on to our first agenda, that is why mental health is still a taboo. So before telling you all why is mental health a taboo and what is mental health, I would want a couple of you to unmute yourselves and tell me, what do you think mental health is? One or two volunteers would be great from your side. Let's make it a little interactive so that all of you are equally involved. Okay, one person did raise their hand. Can we please unmute them?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Maitri, you're audible. Please go ahead. What do you think mental health is?
Yeah. So, ma'am, I believe well-being, yeah, a sense of well-being, particularly emotional, would be mental health for me.
All right, that's a really nice way to put it. And I put forward another question to you, that is, why do you think it's still a taboo in India and it's not, people are not comfortable talking about it? Why is it so?
Because if I were to, if I were to approach even a friend or an acquaintance saying that, I have issues pertaining to mental health, then I fear that I would be regarded as, being someone inadequate. Yeah, someone incapable of carrying out normal routine chores. And to put it very simply, I might just be branded, a loony. That's why, ma'am.
All right, that's the way you put it is great, and I'm sure it's very raw, and that's it. That is why mental health is still a taboo in India. Would anyone else want to go ahead? Any other viewpoints, any other opinions? What is mental health and why is it still a taboo in India? Okay, no worries. Maitri, that was great. We can now. Okay, there's one more person who raised their hand. Can we please unmute them?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. I'm unable to see your name. I'm sorry. Your name,
Devosh,
please.
Devoshmita Sareen.
Okay, Devoshmita. Why do you think mental health is still a taboo in India? And before that, what do you think mental health is?
Mental health is that is the branch of medical science that deals with the state of mind. Like
Mm-hmm.
apart from body, like we have something called mind and how
Mm-hmm.
the like how we are today, like how we are feeling, our moods, how like this. That's what mental health is all about.
All right, that's good. And why do you think it is still a taboo in India?
It's still a taboo because I think it's not much discussed about and it's not visible from outside. Not all understand what is it because it's something. It's some like it's it's hidden inside us. It's our state of mind. It's cannot. It's not much of uh like people are not aware. Perhaps might be because we have not discussed about that, or it's like not visible from outside. What I
Okay,
think.
so since okay, that was good. Since Devasmita told that it is still a taboo in India because it's not discussed about, people don't know about it, and we are unaware. Most of us are unaware about how our mental health is going on. So today, it clearly tells why we're here today. We are here to discuss about mental health so that all of us attending the session today become more aware about what does mental health mean and all the topics around it, and everyone on us can become more vigilant about things happening around us. Maybe it could be a friend, it could be an acquaintance who's going through something, and after today's session, maybe you're aware enough to ask them a simple question: how are you doing? It couldn't be, how are you doing academically, or how are you doing in your career or socially. It could just be like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? This one simple question could maybe make them feel heard and they could feel better. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So, defining mental health is a positive concept. It encompasses our emotions, our psyche, and our social interactions. This is more or less what Maitri and Debasmita told us earlier. So, I'll repeat it for you. Mental health is a positive concept. It encompasses our emotions, what are we feeling, our psyche, how are we thinking, and our social interactions. How do we interact with people and how we talk to people? Do we like to go out a lot? Do we not like to go out a lot? And so on and so forth. Moving on to the next slide. So, here's a fact for you. A 2011 World Health Organization sponsored study found that 36% of Indians suffered from a major depressive episode within their lifetime. So it is not something which does not exist, or it is not something which is very rare. It's something which is very, very common because 36% of the people have been found that they're suffering from a diagnosed medical illness, a diagnosed mental illness. That clearly states us that a lot of people would be on the borderline, a lot of people would be just mentally disturbed, but still it is a taboo. And like we discussed, it is a taboo because people might think, okay, she is incapable, okay, she or he or they are not enough. Maybe they can't do things like other people can. And like Maitri already told, they could easily tell that, oh my god, she's very incapable, she can't do this, she can't do that. People could think that. And us as people, we would never want others to think anything of that sort about us because we know that is not true. And also, as Debasmita told, it is something which is very less talked about because people are like, hush, hush, no, don't talk about it. It's not that common and all of that. And it's a taboo and this is not right, that is wrong. All of these could be the reasons why it is still a taboo and we can't talk openly about it. So let's create a ripple in this ocean of why is it like this, why is it like that, and start talking about it from today onwards. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so this is a very common dialogue which we often hear in our houses, in our friend circles, and everywhere we sit and talk about. It says, Log kya kahenge? What would people think about us? Would they sit and gossip? Would they sit and judge us? They'll be thinking, oh my god, there's such a drama. Or they would be like, oh, there's neglected psychological care, and so on and so forth. So most of us, whenever we want to do something which is not goes by the society's concept, we always think what will people think about us. And this could be one of the main reasons that most of the people are not able to talk about their mental health because they know that people won't understand, people would sit and judge them, or maybe their own so-called friends would sit and gossip about them, and everyone outright will come and be like, oh my god, they're doing this for all this drama, when actually it is not drama, it is something very serious. Moving on to the next slide. So we shouldn't go any further. We will start about talking about our own country's current situation. Regardless of the disorder, however, the data compiled by India's PEN and WHO reveal a staggering treatment gap for all the mental health disorders in India. Only 10% of the patients in the country get treated. Another important thing to note is in India's health budget, the mental health care cost accounts for just 0.06%. Access to mental health care in India is poor in both urban and rural areas. So we can't be like it's a monetary issue. It's not just a monetary issue because the access is poor in both urban and rural areas. The professional training is not the norm nowadays. The insurance does not make mental health care affordable. Even if you go for health insurance, most of the health insurances don't include mental health disorders, which is very sad considering today's situation. Therapy is thus associated with stigma, and also it is very difficult to get help. And the list goes on and on and on. We can also add the points as to why mental health is still a taboo in India. And what are the results of it being a taboo and it not being a topic which is openly talked about? Now, amongst all the things that I read about here, why do you think this is happening? I would want one person to volunteer and tell me about it. Why do you think that our government has not decided to, give the mental health care a budget more than less than 6% or less than 1%, that is 0.06%? Why do you think they don't want to spend on the mental health care? And why do you think the access to healthcare does not matter even though it's rural, even though it's urban? One person has raised their hands. Can we please unmute themselves or them?
Hi. Basically, I think it's also a lot to do with not just taboos, but also in society, we often judge people or assess their value by how productive they are. And this goes for both physical and mental disabilities, where if in case, sometimes we do have mental health issues where we are less productive and we do need a break, and that should be okay because it's a health issue. We wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
expect someone with a broken leg to run a race. We would expect them to rest. And that same courtesy is not extended to mental health. And I think it's because not just the government, but the general mindset is, why should we help citizens who will not be productive towards the country?
Okay, that's a really nice point, and it's a kind of debatable point to be discussed about because people with disabilities do have, their share of expenditure in the budget, their share of reservations in areas because they do deserve it. So why not for mental health care? Because be the government or be the people, they might pity people with disabilities for like a moment or so, but then they're like, no, even these people deserve it. Even these people, should have a place in all the major decision making areas, and hence the reservation for the pwd people. And hence we want to make them normal, and we don't call them people with disabilities, we just call them differently abled. So if we can be so considerate with people with physical health issues, why not mental health issues? Would anyone want to add anything to it? Okay, Shrey has raised their hand. Please unmute. Yeah. Debasmita, you can go after Shrey.
I think one of the major components that comes into play here is the concept of it's all in your head, which is something that you tend to hear from pretty much everyone for all of your life. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling paranoid, perhaps, or scared, or vulnerable and not yourself, that's the time when you tend to hear this the most, which is, "Are, it's all in your head. It'll go away. It's not real." Doesn't really matter to them how real it may be to you, because the perception is that something that's physical, that can be seen,
Mm-hmm.
is tangible, and therefore is the only thing that exists. Anything else is just in your head, and fix it and move on in life. So I think
All
that's a
right,
major
that's
barrier.
an amazing point, because people do outright say, "Yeah, it's all in your head." Am I? Um, can you hear me now? Okay, great. I'm so sorry, there was a network issue. It got disconnected for a while. So yeah, as Shrey told, it's a very valid point because more often than not, people just say it as every other thing, that yeah, it's all in your head and there's nothing such because it's not seen. And I feel that's a really, can't say valid per se, but that's a very strong point. And we need to tell people that yeah, even though you can't see it, it pretty much exists and it's very much real. Great. Devasmita, you wanted to say something? Would you want to go next?
Yes, I absolutely agree to my previous speaker, whatever he said. I would like
Mm-hmm.
to add that perhaps because we have not much of doctors in the decision making panel of the government, I think we also, doctors need to be in the politics also, so that we can make decisions and it is being given value to. That's what I think. It's like we need more and more doctors, more educated people in the governing bodies and decision making bodies of a country. That's how we can increase the health budget. That's what I
Okay,
think.
okay. That's a very nice point. Why just doctors? We could also have psychologists, which could be a part in the decision making committee. Yeah, that's what you meant.
Yes, yes. More
Okay,
of
so
educated and concerned people.
yeah, that's a nice point. More of people who would vouch for mental health and who would, root for mental health being one of the, not issues per se, one of the major pivotal things in life, as every other thing is. Okay, great. Yeah, someone has raised their hand. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. I've been agreeing on everything, every other speaker that has spoken before me. What I like to add here is maybe the mental health education in itself has to be more highlighted in the most primary early ages of one's life, because as we can see, everybody around us, these youngsters, are grown ups now at so early age, and these people are coming across relationships and depression coming along with it, and how these people are dealing with it all by themselves. And India, as a major role playing country, has no provisions that has been provided for such really young minds. Like as we can see in the US, they have counselors in high schools whom you can actually confide into after your school comes to an end, or maybe, and your parents did not know about it. So there's such a transparency, the gray area which has not been covered, as like the mental health area first need to be approached, and then maybe we can expect the uh, government sector to play a role in providing healthcare into it, and making a count of it, putting in money to be taken care of. So
That
the
was an
whole,
amazing. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, so the mental health education, that something like that really exists in the first place, the acceptance towards it should be into the picture first, and then maybe it'll be taken on a major level to government sector, I'd say. So the account says 0.06% is what been put in. That's ridiculously low comparatively to the education level that we have come so far, comparatively to the other growing developing countries. It's really terrible to see this. It's pathetically low.
Okay, that's an amazing point that you made, because yes, we need to first of all accept that there's a problem that exists where counselors are just namesake counselors. Obviously, good ones are there, but most of, like, the counselor in my school was just there. She was like just another teacher, and we were not at all open to her. And I think this shouldn't happen to students or any of the people, considering the fact that yes, the newer generation is growing up very early. They are living a very fast paced life. They're getting into relationships, they're coming on social media, and they're going out and doing things which we did after, maybe after our 10th standard or something, and they're into it from the very beginning. So, keeping in mind that change that is happening, we also need to have a significant change in the mental health providers, in the counselors, in the psychologists. And that was an amazing point. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it? Can you please help me how to pronounce your name?
It's
Aishwarya.
Jain.
Oh, sorry.
Jaini. Yeah. Jaini, please go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add because the doctor point reminded me that doctors who do not specialize in mental health need to be more aware of it, because there are a lot of issues connected to it. So I have personally had an experience where some of my other doctors discouraged me from seeking counseling because that's just fake, or they will just put me on addictive medication, or I don't need it, or I will grow out of it. And these are doctors saying these things. So I think doctors who do not specialize in mental health need to be more aware of it, because their patients may be suffering from mental health problems, and they should not be discouraging them from seeking help, but should be actively encouraging them.
Okay, that's a very valid point. So, outright just saying doctors should be included, it's better if we say that people who root for mental health, as who genuinely root for mental health, who genuinely support mental health, should be a part of the decision making committee. Okay, great. Moving on to our next slide, we have a few myths and facts for you. So you have in front of you six statements written, and I want two people to volunteer and tell me which one do you think is a fact, which one do you think is a myth, and why. Anyone would like to volunteer? Okay, Shrey, please go ahead. Anyone else?
Shall I begin now
Mhm.
or shall I wait for somebody
Yeah,
else?
I think you can begin now. If someone else wants to volunteer, they're more than welcome.
Right. So the first one is definitely a myth, because
Okay.
the entire concept of therapy is to get to know yourself better.
Mm-hmm.
and become a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be done at any point in your journey. It does not have to be at your very worst or
Mm-hmm.
your very best. It can be whenever
Mm-hmm.
you feel like it.
True.
um, Therapy is passive. Again, I would think that this is a myth because you know, one thing that I think I've observed is you can't really be passive and move on from any issues that are in your head or
Mm-hmm.
otherwise in your life. You need to take an active role, and that can only be supported by a therapist. They cannot pull you by the reins, you know.
Yeah.
um, the third one is again an absolute and utter myth.
All right.
Seeking
Perfect.
therapy is something that a lot of people struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because it's perceived as a weakness, but it actually takes a lot of strength and courage to open yourself up to someone who is really a stranger at that time. You might get to know their person better later through the journey, but when you start off, you're opening yourself up, opening up things that you haven't told anyone to
Mm-hmm.
an absolute stranger, and that takes a lot of courage. uh the fourth one, once again, I wouldn't say it's either a fact or a myth. I'd say it's subjective. It depends on what issues you're trying to solve and what kind of therapy you're receiving. While most people would not be able to resolve all their issues in 1 or 2 sessions, they would definitely see progress uh, in that. The
Okay,
fifth
great.
one,
The
I would
fifth
say,
one.
is again, it's a fact.
Okay, great. The sixth one.
The sixth one is again, it's a myth. I think that's one of the most common things that you will hear from advocates of anti therapy, and you can do it yourself, you don't need anyone's help, and all that nonsense.
Okay, great. Would anyone else want to tell something else? For as of now, Shrey told us that all of them are myths except one, that is the fifth one, which is a fact.
The
Anyone else would
sixth
want?
one, I'd like to say that yes, there might be perception that um, treating your mental health disorders to a counselor would be a pricey business, and which is
Mm-hmm.
also the reason why people might not be directing themselves towards it. Maybe thinking, "Chalo, let's get over it. Like, let's get over it on your own." Maybe you don't feel like spending that much on something which is not visible physically to you,
Mm-hmm.
but since something is not visible to you, it becomes more of a problem than you think that it is. So rather pay as much and get yourself treated, I'd say, to a psychologist.
Okay, great. Would anyone else want to add something? Would anyone else want to add something, or we'll move on? Okay, we shall move to the next slide. Great. So here's something which is a message for all of us, including me. So don't hesitate to seek professional help. None of us should hesitate to seek professionals' help because it's something that we all need. And before we talk about it, I agree it's easier said than done, because hesitation is not something that someone plans and does. It just comes from inside. If I, as a person, was not feeling well or I'm not feeling well, I would obviously be like, do I need this help? Do I not need this help? Is it something that I'm overthinking about? None of my friends go to therapy. Why do I need to do it? And all those ifs and buts will come to my mind. But then I shouldn't hesitate. It's something I should, go take as an ideal, because the therapists care about our mental health, they care about how we feeling, and it's not just for money as it was written in the previous slide. It's not just a so-called pricey venting session. It's something more than that. To add to it, we do care about our hearts, so why can't we care for our minds? And that's a very simple yet deep statement, because we do so much about, oh, I like this, I'll do this. I don't like this, I won't do this, and so on and so forth in our day-to-day lives. So why can't we do it for our minds? We can do it, I think. Moving on to the next slide. Mental health and its affordability in India. Now we are coming about talking about mental health and the therapy and how affordable it is, how many people take it, and so on and so forth. The next slide. According to a Lancet study and Global Health Data Exchange, India accounts for nearly 15% of the global mental health burden, and 1 in 7 Indians is estimated to suffer from mental health disorders. So it is that grave, it is that widespread, it is that evident yet inevident that 1 in 7 Indians is estimated to suffer from mental health disorders. So, amongst maybe 50 people over here, 7 of us have a mental health disorders, and I highly doubt how many of us know. As an example, in Bihar, one of the most economically deprived areas in India, the number of people suffering from schizophrenia is more than entirety of North America. Now, this example in itself depicts that the situation is very, very grave because it says, I'll read it again. It says, in Bihar, one of the most economically deprived areas of India. Okay, it's very economically deprived, but in an area, the number of people suffering from schizophrenia is more than the entirety of another country, which is very, very grave. So, definitely, mental health disorders are widespread. We just need to be, you know, on our toes and start to get therapy, start to get diagnosed, start to take care of our mental health like we take care of our hypertensions, our diabetes, and all of those things. And mental health is very prevalent, evidently. Moving on to the next slide. Now, the vicious cycle of stigma and poverty. So, like everything is interconnected, here the financial burden, the poverty, the monetary factor which comes into play is very important in here as well. Because when we talk about poverty, it puts people at high risks because they have all the other problems, plus the problem of money, plus the problem of lack of shelter, plus the problem of instability, plus the problem of, being at risk all the time. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So poverty puts people at a higher risk than compared to people who are not poor, than compared to people who are above the poverty line. After this, what happens is they have a denial of income generating employment. So there are a lot of people, India has a lot of population, but we have equally less opportunities for people to work. So people do not get the work which they want. People do not get the work by which they can feed their tummies. They can make 2 square meals a day. After that, what happens is when they can't afford these basic amenities of life, their basic amenities to live, they're basically starving, they can't afford treatment, obviously. This further exaggerates poverty, further exaggerates the problem of despair. And it is a very sad reality of our country. And evidently, the political condition in here is making it worse, and people are not paying attention to it. But we, as the youth of today, as the people who are talking about mental health today, need to accept that one of the reasons is poverty, along with the major reason, which is stigma, which we talked about earlier. Moving on to the next slide. In India, the mental health services are integrated into primary health services with support and supervision from mental health teams at the district level. This system was set up to counter the stigma of mental illness and makes treatment available to rural communities. However, not all districts are covered under this program, and many primary healthcare physicians have not received any up to date training in mental health. So it says that in paper, in the rule making, they've told that mental health is important, it should be a part of the primary health service. Being from a medical background, I know primary health service is supposed to be something which is accessible to every person. Secondary is supposed to be okay, a bigger setup, and tertiary is supposed to be an even bigger setup, a private setup. Primary is supposed to be present at all the rural areas, at all the districts, so that it's accessible to all. That is one of the main reasons that the people or the citizens of a country do not have to go very far to seek basic health amenities. Now they have included the mental health services in the primary healthcare services, which is an amazing step. But again, it is not present in all the districts. And we can't outright say that this district needs more mental health caregivers and this district needs less number of mental health caregivers. So that's a very gray area. Why is it not present in all areas? Because all districts, because no one would be like, provide first aid in 10 out of 20 districts and don't provide it in the rest 10, because it is that important. And the same implies with mental health as well. It's not like mental health care is important, okay, only in these 15 out of 20 districts, only in this 15 out of 20 areas, and not the rest 5. That's not the case, right? Because we can't discriminate this way. So that's one gray area. And the second is, even though it is present in places, the given number of places, people have not received any up to date training. So imagine I'm a mental health caregiver who's sitting at a primary healthcare center telling that, yes, I will provide you with mental health care. But I myself do not know what mental health care is. Why is it important? Why does this person need it? Why is that person needed? How am I different from a person who just says it's all in your head? That's another huge drawback or a gray area, call it whatever. We have we as in the rule makers have tried to include it, but sad to say they have not been successful, or they might have been like semi partially successful, if that exists. Moving on to the next slide. All right, so based on a WHO study, India has nearly 0.29 psychiatrists and around 0.07 psychologists per 100,000 of a population. So over 100,000 of a population, we don't even have one psychiatrist, we don't even have one psychologist, and it clearly states, why are people not taking up jobs? Because obviously everyone says it's not that important. Additionally, India has only 1.43 hospital beds available for mental health patients per 100,000 of a population, which clearly states that we couldn't have cared less. This demonstrates the lack of organizational planning in this important area. Individuals who cannot be treated at the primary care level are referred to mental health outpatient facilities, psychiatric wings of general hospitals, or dedicated psychiatric facilities. However, lack of resources is a key challenge in these facilities as well. Stopping for like maybe a couple minutes over here, would anyone want to add something over here? Anything that crossed your mind, anything which made you say that, yes, this is what I thought about it, or anything which made you say that, oh my God, is this the case? We have one raised hand. Jaini, please go ahead.
Right. Sorry. Just one thing I'd like to add is that mental health professionals need to be trained in and aware of social dynamics. And what I mean by this is um, a queer person seeking therapy should feel safe with the therapist, that the therapist is aware of their identity. A woman should feel safe that the therapist knows that there are certain structures in society that may be causing her distress. Because I'm speaking from personal experience, because I did go to a therapist where I had to sit and explain my identity for an hour and convince them that it is valid. And
Okay.
this was a
Thank
trained,
you so
yeah,
much. Please go ahead.
yeah, and this was a trained mental health professional. And again, I'm not saying that all therapists are bad. Please do go to therapy, but this should be a standard thing that therapists do make themselves aware of these things.
Okay, great. Anyone else would want to add something to it? No one else. We just had 5 people now who were actively interacting. It would be nice if you speak up and be a part of the discussion. Okay, since no one wants to volunteer, that's completely cool. Moving on to the next slide. Now, talking about the common mental health problems among students, it could be depression, not the depression which people talk about in the next sentence they take out from their mouth. Oh my God, I'm depressed. That's not depression. Depression, when a diagnosed mental health illness is a thing, with approximately 11.9% of college students suffering, anxiety disorders are the most prevalent psychiatric problems. And the prevalence rates of anxiety disorders is from 7 to 9%, whereas that of depression is 11.9%. Eating disorders are very, very common. A recent survey reported that 9.5% students screen positive with a higher prevalence amongst the females, because it is said that females are more conscious about how I look, how people see me. Am I fat? Am I thin? Am I slim? Am I in the right shape? And so on and so forth. ADHD, it also is very prevalent and it affects 2 to 8% of the students. And this might look like a very small number, but then even in a class, I study in a class of 200 people. So four people amongst my class would have ADHD. And it's very sad to say it's very undiagnosed, because people are like, it could be this, it could be that, it could be because of some XYZ reason, it could be because the mood is not well, and so on and so forth. But it is very prevalent and it's 2 to 8%. Looks like a small number, but when you extrapolate it to the amount of people around you, it becomes a very strong factor in determining if people are mentally healthy or not. Moving on to the next slide. Students' role in mental health awareness. So we've talked about what government can do. We've talked about how psychiatrists are not up to the mark. We've talked about how psychologists need to improve. We've also talked about how do we need better counselors in our schools and colleges. Now we come to the students' role in mental health awareness. So in the next slide, how can us students make everyone else, including ourselves, mentally aware? Educate yourself. So you can all give a pat on your back because you are indeed educating yourself by attending the session today. Apart from this, you can read up about common symptoms and actively learn to look out for warning signs of poor mental health. You can also take care of your own mental health, because that's the most important thing that you should do before helping someone else, before helping my friend who's not feeling well. I need to make sure that I'm feeling well, because it's a very personal instance, because I have had friends who would spend hours on phone counseling another friend of theirs, and at the end of that long 1 hour or 2 hour calls, they would end up being drained themselves. So helping someone out on the expense of your own mental health wouldn't be a wise decision to make all the time. A couple of times is okay. Maybe they needed it more than you, or any of the other reasons. But when you do it repeatedly, thinking, oh my God, her mental health is not well, but wait, what about your own? Right? So you should talk about your feelings, you should take breaks, and you should ask for help when required. When you can ask for help, like, do you have this thing? Can you lend me that? Do you have this thing? Can you lend me that? You can also be like, do you have like 5 minutes and you can lend me those 5 minutes of yours to listen to me? And that would help me feel better. And me feeling better should be a very important thing for me. It applies to all of you. You feeling better, you feeling good about your mental health should be very important to you, because that is how you will be an asset or a liability to the people around you. If you're like, no, 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 I just want to help people around me, but you're not feeling well, what sort of help can you provide? So it all starts with ourselves. So in your head, this moment, you can take like a tiny, strong pledge that, okay, I'll take care of my own mental health, because that's where it all starts. Moving on to the next slide. Acceptance and empathy for friends and family. So you need not always be like, Why is it happening to my best friend? Why is it happening to my girlfriend? Why is it that the person I am dating is only suffering from ADHD? Why is it that in my relationship I have such a problem? Why is it that my mom is suffering from this? Other than putting all the W's you have in your head, you could just be like, fine, I accept it. My partner could be suffering from ADHD. My best friend could be having depression. My mom could be feeling anxiety. Just that she doesn't know about it. They didn't do anything wrong. That just happened to them. No one wants to be sick on their own, it just happens to them. So we could be like, yeah, we accepted that this happens, and we could be empathetic towards them. And I believe there's a very slim yet very important line between empathy and sympathy. If I meet a friend who's suffering from a diagnosed mental health disorder, I shouldn't be like, oh my god, I'm so sad for her. Why is she going through all of this? She won't be like an equal competition. That is where the problem starts. That is what we talked about earlier about people thinking that she is less capable, she's not equal to others, etc. etc. Instead, if we are like, fine, I know what you're going through, I know what she's going through, and I empathize with it. I don't want to give her sympathy. I don't want to feel sorry for her. I don't want to feel anything for her at all. I just want to empathize with her and I want to feel what she's feeling and leave it there. You don't need to be like, very sorry for you, you're not equal to us, you'll be behind, you're not mentally sane, all those shit words that people say. We don't need to do that. We just need to be a little empathetic. Yeah, you're going through this. Okay, I accept and I empathize with you that you're going through this. That is it. I don't want to feel sorry for you because that's not going to help you. That's going to make you weaker. And I, as a genuine person, would not want to make you feel weaker, is what I stand by. Great. Next is social media. So use your platform to talk about the importance of good mental health. Share your story and informative posts to help spread the right information. So we all say social media will suck all the positive energy out of you. Why do you want to look at other people doing things? It's nothing to got. It's there's nothing that you got to do with it. So on and so forth. But it's not that social media is all that evil, or it's all negative, and it can't do anything good. Obviously, we are here because we spread the word about this session today on social media. We are here, and I got to know a lot of like minded people, a lot of people who root for mental health as being a very pivotal part through social media itself. So, we should use social media as a very positive, yeah, and a very useful tool. And it's not your life, because some people are like, something happened on Instagram, I can't do this. Something happened on Facebook, I can't do this. Oh my god, so much is happening on Twitter, I can't. It's not your life, it's just a tool. So use it as a tool and make it a useful tool for yourself, because things are what we make out of them, right? So let's make use of it as a very, very useful tool, and so that it is a beneficiary to us. Great. Moving on to the next slide. Reach out to the community. Yes, you should not limit your conversation to your peers. I'm here, I'll talk to three of my friends. I'll talk to three of my friends. I'll put it out there on social media so that people who I don't talk about, and I'm just like, they're just Instagram friends, even though they ponder upon what has she written on her story, it might create a ripple in their heads that, okay, this is something, and they would be low-key, subtly compelled to think about it. And I would reach to a larger community. Advocate. You should reach out to your community leaders and encourage them to participate in national mental health events and create plans to help people gain access to mental health care services. When you advocate for something, when you want to get things done, it obviously helps you, and it largely helps people who actually want it but are finding for, a strength or a partner who could do it for them. Moving on to the next slide. Here is our last session for today's discussion: resources providing mental health services. So, here are a list of resources which provide free mental health care services in one way or the other. You could take it down. I'll read it for you once. The Mind Research Foundation, Serenity, Breathe to Relax, Happify, Headspace, mood tools, mind shift, and PTSD coach. Also, we have more resources which we, as an NGO, the Career Wellness Foundation, have put together and put it as a post on our Instagram page. You can also go and check it out over there. And if you have any questions or if any one of you want to add anything to it, you can please go ahead. Anything that you'd want to add? Come on, guys, there would be something. All right, no worries. The next slide. Great. So, as an incentive for all of you for attending today's session, we have a listening circle. I'm all ears from Career Wellness Foundation's side, and we'll be sending the link for the same in the WhatsApp group, and you can add it. You can join it. Sorry, not add it. Before that, I would want to tell you one thing. Since listening circle will be an anonymous, safe space where you can come and talk about what you're going through and lend a ear to others, I would want you to send me on the okay, I'll be sending my number on the WhatsApp group, and you have to DM me. Don't send it in the group. You have to DM me a color of your choice, and that color would be your name in the Zoom meeting of the listening circle. I repeat myself. Listening circle is going to be an anonymous, safe space where you could come and vent and come and listen to others, lend a ear to others, even though it would be going in a channelized way. It won't be half served. I will be moderating the listening circle. Since it is an anonymous, safe space, we will not be switching on cameras. We will not be there with our own names. We will be renaming ourselves with a color's name. Now, which color's name will we be naming ourselves with is the one which you'll be sending on my DM. Any of the color that you would want to choose. For example, Urja chose purple, Prachi chose blue, Sankalp chose pink, Larika chose white. So on so forth, you will send it to me and I will send you a thumbs up, which will tell you that the color is not being repeated. That is, your name is confirmed, and then you can start joining the Zoom meeting. If I'm clear, you can leave this meeting and wait for the Zoom session link. If at all you have any doubts about the session till now or about the listening circle, how will it be conducted, you can unmute yourselves and go ahead.
So is this a support group kind of thing? That's what I want to know about this.
Debaspita, yes, you could call it a support group. You could call it a listening circle per se. Anything would do. Also, before you all leave, I would just want to say a heartfelt thank you for giving in your time and listening to the session very nicely. You were a great audience. And a big, big thank you to all the people who were interacting. And I'm sure you would have a better takeaway since you were interacting. And for more information about the various mental health issues and what we talk about, what we need to talk about, and the mental health care resources and other topics, you can check out our Instagram page, that is @_Khairyat, KHAIRYAT, and our blog at khairyat.org. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it because the entire team puts in great amount of effort and teamwork to make sure that our Instagram and our website is up to date, and we put great content related to mental health. And all of us at Career Wellness Foundation root for mental health to become the mainstream at one point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining this session. You can guys fill up the post event form, which we'll put on the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much.